Now, if you're bored of the mainstream ancient authors like Cicero or Homer, you really should give these a try. The Greek magical papyri is a huge collection of magical spells, mainly from Greco-Roman Egypt, dating from about the 2nd century BCE to the 5th century CE. You have all kinds of crazy things like love spells and spells that will help you win chariot races, but today I was reading my favorite invisibility spells, so move over, Harry Potter, let's turn invisible. Now, there are several invisibility spells among the Greek magical papyri, but today we are just focusing on one. The first line reads, "A tested spell for invisibility. It works very well. Take an eye of an ape or of a corpse that has died a violent death and grind it with oil of lily." And this is why I didn't want to try making this spell myself. I'm pretty sure the local morgue would not like me taking the eye of a guy who died a recently violent death. Pretty sure I'd get arrested for that. As you are grinding them up from right to left, say the following spell. I am Anubis, I am Osiris Re, rise up infernal daimon. So far we have two components of the spell, the invocation and the ingredients. Now, the invocation calls upon mostly Egyptian gods, which makes sense considering the historical context in Egypt, but remember that this is a Greek spell, so there's a little bit of overlap between Greco-Roman culture and Egyptian religion. And the ingredients are actually pretty standard for the Greek magical papyri. The ancients had all sorts of techniques for preparing perfumes or potions, but I want to focus on the second ingredient. It's a little more weird. Taking an eye of an ape or from a corpse of a person who died a violent death. Now, using an eye in your potion makes a certain level of sense. You're trying to subvert the sense of sight, so why not grind up an eye? Though taking it from a person who died a violent death requires a little bit more explanation. We actually see this everywhere in the Greek magical papyri. Lots of spells call for taking limbs from someone who died violently, or hair from a dead guy to complete your potion. Now, the reason that the ancients saw violently killed people as ritually potent was because that it was believed that their spirits weren't properly put to rest, that they floated between life and death, wreaking havoc and wreaking vengeance on the living. The scholar Sarah Iles Johnston, an excellent historian at Ohio State University, writes extensively on these ancient Greek beliefs. So even though this sounds really weird to us, it makes a lot of sense in the Greco-Roman context of religion. If you were a dude in the Greco-Roman province of Egypt trying to make a really powerful potion, it would make a lot of sense that you need to enlist the help of spirits of the restless dead. And the spell finally tells you how to apply the ingredients. And if you wish to become invisible, rub your forehead with this mixture, and you will be invisible for as long as you wish. Okay, full disclosure, I didn't test this spell for myself. I know I made a Roman curse tablet for you all a few months ago, and just to let you know, my brother is still perfectly fine. It doesn't seem like the curse actually worked yet. But I am 99.9% sure, from what we know about, science, rubbing some concoction of ape eye and lily oil is not going to turn you invisible. Go over to MIT and ask for their metamaterials that can bend visible light if you really want to get a real-life invisibility cloak. So were the guys who wrote this spell just stupid? Why would they believe in such a ritual? Now, I'm the first to say that no, the ancients were not stupid people. Remember, these are the same guys who built this, and this, and this. Oh, you haven't heard of this? This is the Antikythera mechanism, the first analog computer that could predict the positions of stars and planets. The Greeks and Romans were not stupid. But from our modernist perspective, it's very easy to judge the ancient Greeks and Romans for being irrational for believing stuff like this. Stanley Tambaya, a super influential anthropologist, argued that to view magical acts and rituals as if they were scientific activity, as failed science, is not an accurate way to understand the ancients' use of magic. We expect the ancients to act like us, apply the scientific method, look for empirical results, but it's important to remember that the ancients did not operate under the same experiences and intellectual framework that we do. First of all, it's important to remember that the ancients did not practice magic in the form of controlled empirical experiments. If the invisibility spell failed, they could say, oh, I guess I said the invocation wrong, or I guess Osiris really didn't want to help me today. Secondly, these magical rituals did have an effect. Not an empirical effect, like turning you invisible, but a social effect. Just by grinding up an ape's eye and rubbing it on your forehead, doing these rituals changes your outlook on life. It changes your attitudes and your thoughts, how you interact with people in the world. Maybe by doing this ritual, a guy was like, oh, now I can go rob the grocery store. But without doing that ritual, he would not have thought about doing that. So even though ancient magical rituals don't have empirical effects, like what we want to see from our modernist perspective of the scientific method, they did have social effects because the people that were practicing these rituals were doing them to respond to specific social situations. And maybe by doing these rituals, it changed how they interacted in the world and interacted with other people. So all this to say, ancient magic was everywhere in antiquity. And though none of these spells would ever make it into a modern science fair, they do remind us that the ancients operated under a different intellectual outlook on the world. A world where the supernatural and the natural were intermingled, and that your thoughts and your actions could influence either one of them. Any anthropological study of magic needs to be aware of this, that importing our own ideas of what constitutes rationality back onto these people misunderstands their own rationality, why they did these rituals in the first place, and what they did for societies back then. Thanks for watching and subscribing, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. If you like what you see, feel free to subscribe or follow us on Facebook. And if you'd like to support the show financially, check out our Patreon page. Now, this is officially the first episode of Magic, Science, Religion, which is my third playlist. And this will study the subjective terms of magic and religion and how science fits into this. One person's magic is another person's religion, one person's science is another person's magic. So we will cover anthropological studies of magic. We'll also touch on scientific studies of religion. We'll be studying some really interesting stuff in this playlist, and I'm pretty excited about it. So stay tuned, and thanks for watching.